dingy garden flat in the Camellia Apartments just outside the gates of Fort Benning in Columbus, Georgia. He drove a brand-new Corvette. His fatigues, at least very early in the morning before the stifling heat of a Georgia August day had wilted them, were starched stiffly, and his boots were expertly spit-shined, toes gleaming like black agates in the sun. The whiz could thus be described as strack, a military word that bespoke expert attention to appearance and a superior military bearing. But there was a problem. More than one, actually. Two captains had been assigned as platoon advisors to the platoon. This was for them TDY, a temporary duty assignment while they awaited slots in the next class of the infantry officers' advanced course. These sterling exemplars of military proficiency took one look at their platoon in the infantry officers' basic course and calculated they wouldn't have fulfilled their natural duties as men and as officers if they hadn't run at least one of the college boys out of the program and thus out of the Army. They were not college boys. Having graduated from high school, been drafted, and received their commissions in officer candidate school. One of the platoon advisors was a stockily built man who carried himself like a professional wrestler, his shoulders rolling menacingly as he walked. The other advisor was short and very slight. It was necessary for him to tilt back his head and look up to make eye contact with Whizzer, which he proceeded to do as the two captains zeroed in on him. Specifically, they zeroed in on Whizzer's mustache. The captains walked up to him that first day in formation and ordered him to cut it off. Whizzer patiently explained that his mustache was legal, having been trimmed in the manner specified by Army regulations, and he had no intention of cutting it off. Out of the corner of his eye, Slaight saw the beginnings of a grin cross the face of the shorter of the two platoon advisors, the one everyone would come to call monkey breath, because of the strong stench of cigarettes and coffee which were emitted every time he opened his mouth. The grin was replaced by a reddening scowl, and the captain turned on his heel and stalked away. Whizzer glanced at Slaight and shrugged, thinking it was over. Slaight knew it was not. The platoon advisors appointed Whizzer student platoon leader, which meant that Whizzer marched the platoon to and from classes at the infantry school. When the platoon reached its first class that morning, and the command to fall out had been given, the platoon advisors told Whizzer to march over to a nearby tree, and in full view of the rest of the company, they proceeded to order Whizzer to give the tree marching commands such as platoon attention, column right march, platoon halt. It was harassment, pure and simple. While Whizzer's command voice was not among the most authoritative Slaight had encountered, everyone in the platoon had heard and acted upon Whizzer's commands without problems. Whizzer and the rest of the platoon soon got the message that his command voice wasn't the point. His mustache was. The platoon advisors were intent on making his life miserable until he cut it off. Slaight was at the officers' club when it came to him. He was having a beer with another classmate, whom everyone called Airborne, because he had used one of his summer leaves while at West Point to attend airborne school instead of taking a well-deserved vacation. Slaight told Airborne he felt like growing a mustache, so Whizzer's wasn't the only mustache in the platoon, and the advisors would have to concentrate their hazing on 2 lieutenants instead of 1. Airborne rubbed his upper lip thoughtfully. Turned out that just that morning he had begun to wonder what he'd look like with a mustache. Airborne decided he would grow one too. By the end of the week, out of the 40 lieutenants in the platoon, 39 had mustaches, the sole holdout being a graduate of the Citadel who thought the platoon advisors were well within their rights in their hazing of Whizzer. The sprouting of 38 new mustaches did not escape the attention of the platoon advisors. They relieved Whizzer of his student platoon command and gave the job to Slaight. When it turned out that his talents at marching the platoon to and from classes didn't need much work, their frustration grew. They assigned the student platoon command to Airborne. He was similarly well equipped to command the platoon. They fired Airborne and gave command of the platoon back to Whizzer. He had been working on his marching commands at home and took over, marching the platoon to and from classes with alacrity. The platoon advisors had hit the wall. They were in charge of a platoon of mustache-wearing malcontents who had rallied behind the man they wanted to run out of the infantry school. New measures would be necessary. It was very early one morning during bayonet drill when they struck. Whizzer, they said, had been 2 minutes late to formation. Because of his egregious crime, they ordered Whizzer to send his wife home to live with her mother and to move himself immediately into the bachelor officers' quarters where his movements could be more closely monitored. Whizzer contested their assertion that he had been late and noted that he had exactly 6 weeks left with his wife before he reported for duty in Vietnam.